Now let's talk about signifiers. A signifier is a mark or sound that communicates appropriate behavior. A signifier tells people what to do and where to do it. If an affordance is perceptible, it's typically a signifier. However, a signifier is not necessarily an affordance. For example, a sign might tell a person what to do, but it doesn't determine if the action is possible. Let's look at some examples from Norman. Door hardware, like bars or handles, can signal whether to push or pull without signs. But the hardware on these two doors are identical, even though one should be pushed and the other pulled. The horizontal bars make it obvious that the doors should be pushed, but as the signs indicate, the left door needs to be pulled. Only the right door should be pushed. And then Norman adds this very important criticism that I got to agree with 100%. When external signifiers or signs have to be added to something as simple as a door, it indicates bad design. Recall that earlier in this module, we looked at an example of a glass door where it was hard to tell which way it opened. Well, with these doors, there is no option but to push them. But you don't know which side of the door to push. If you push the wrong side, nothing happens. And you may think the door is just locked. Or maybe you might think that there's some hidden handle somewhere that you're supposed to find. The handle of the door on this Amtrak train clearly suggests pulling. But in fact, you have to rotate the handle and the door slides to the side. Panic bars were developed so that people exiting a building in an emergency could escape easily. Fire codes require that fire doors have to open out. When you're panicking, sometimes you can't even think straight to try to pull a door instead of push it. Even worse, if there's a crowd of people pushing to get out behind you, you may not be physically able to pull a door inward. The gate here is a good example of an anti-affordance. It's put on floors where the exit door is. You have to open the gate inward in order to get down the steps, so it compels you to look for the exit door instead. Here's a picture of a crowded train platform. There is a signifier in this picture, but it's not really the kind of signifier that we're used to seeing. Instead of spending a lot of time guessing what the signifier is, think about what this picture is telling you and compare it to what this picture is telling you. The only difference between the two pictures is that in the first picture, the train platform is crowded, and in this picture, the train platform is empty. And don't be fooled into thinking it has something to do with trains. The same kind of pictures can be taken on a subway platform. If you haven't figured it out yet, I'll give you one more hint. If you're trying to get to work quickly by train or subway, what would you rather see when you get out to the platform? Would you rather see a lot of people there or no people there? Take 10 seconds to think about this or pause the video. 10 seconds starting now. Okay, I'm guessing that some folks figured this one out right away and some folks didn't get it at all. The signifier in the last picture is the crowd of people. The signifier in this picture is the lack of people. When I take the metro in DC and I walk down to a platform, if I see a lot of people, it tells me that they've been waiting for the train for a while, so the train is probably coming soon. On the other hand, if I see no people, it tells me that the train has just left, and I have a much longer time to wait before the next train comes. Here's an example of a sink in an English hotel room that Donald Norman found himself at odds with because of its lack of signifiers. He wanted to wash his hands in a tub of water, so he pushed down the stopper and filled up the sink. After he washed his hands, he wanted to get the stopper back up so that he could drain the water, but it wasn't clear how to do that. Sometimes there's a lever on the faucet, but there wasn't one on this sink. Sometimes there's a lever underneath the sink, but he looked and he couldn't find one there either. In fact, he became so frustrated that he called the front desk and they sent up someone to help him drain the sink. As it turned out, you had to push the stopper in again. It was spring-loaded in order for it to come back up. Not only was this a case of a lack of signifiers, but if you wanted to drain the sink after washing your hands in the water, you had to put your hands back into the dirty water to press the spring-loaded stopper. Let's wrap up this section on affordances and signifiers with this little quiz. For each object, give any affordances and signifiers that it has. State whether the affordance is an anti-affordance, a false affordance, or a hidden affordance. I'll give you 10 seconds to pause the video. Please do so and really try to think about how you would answer these. In fact, it would be best if you opened up a text editor and wrote down your answers, or you could do things the old-fashioned way and write your answers on a piece of paper. 10 seconds starting now. Ready? For barbed wire fence, the barbs would be the anti-affordances because they prevent you from touching them. They are definitely perceptible and they are not fake. In fact, since the barbs are perceptible affordances, they also qualify as signifiers. For a high voltage wire with a sign, the voltage in the wire would be the anti-affordance. Since it is not perceptible, the voltage is a hidden anti-affordance. In this case, the signifier would be the sign. For a traditional doorknob, the knob itself would be the affordance, since it affords turning. While the knob is perceptible, it's not necessarily obvious that it should be turned. Consider, for example, someone who had never seen a doorknob before. The knob itself is also a signifier. In this case, it signifies where something should happen, but it doesn't necessarily signify what should happen. And here's the table filled in.